What's going on, guys? Welcome to the Movement Mindset powered by Station Athletics.
Right into it.
Yep, I'm Chris Hardenberg here with Dave Whitson. We are doing another suggested topic today. So, again, when we reached out about the Q&As and I reached out to our staff with suggested topics, I want to give you guys credit. It was super helpful for us to get suggestions from you guys. And a suggestion we got from one of our coaches at Denville, shout out Jaron Einstein, is he wanted us to get into what are some principles or things we look for when looking to design our class programming. So Dave is kind of taking the reins on our CrossFit programming very recently.
Yeah.
But so let's start with you. What are some of the things we look at principle wise when we start to design our cycles?
So I guess some ground rules for this is one, there's no perfect programming. Doesn't exist because we're programming for a group class. So there's so many things we hit, things we miss. There's always gonna be things that people want. And it's mostly because they like them.
Yes.
And that's okay. Right. And our job is to deliver a program that kind of the people walking in the gym, our coaches are gonna be able to modify and scale workouts to fit the purpose and the stimulus of that workout. And so there is an art to it and there is a science to it.
Yep.
And it's not always perfect. And there's times where we mess up.
Yeah.
So, because every time we program and we get feedback from clients or we just see the results from clients, we are learning as well ourselves.
Yeah.
So it's going to sound funny, but there is part of programming that's experimental and you're constantly learning as you go because we need to see how people react to it to 100% know whether or not it worked.
Yeah.
So I've done some kind of trying to think the best way to put it, kind of not Mad Lab because that's an actual company.
Yeah.
But kind of experimental stuff when I used to program for when I owned a gym. And I would flat out say like, hey, we're going to try something for the next whatever so many weeks. And we're going to test afterwards to see if it worked. I'm like, it might work, it might not, but I think it will for most of you because there's this general theme.
Right.
Right. Happy to say most of the time it worked well. Sometimes it flat out failed.
Yeah.
So, I mean, even the most incredible programmers in the world, they think, oh, this is going to be great. And then whether it's an individual or a group of people doing it, you're like, nope, didn't see that coming. And it happens, right?
Right.
So I guess for any of our clients or members listening, we know when we mess up the programming. We appreciate you letting us know. And we also appreciate the grace that, hey, we're going to keep getting better from it, right? Because not every workout goes to plan.
Yes.
It just, yeah. So there's things that we might not think of. We all have our own biases. We all have our own kind of holes that we need to work on. So, and that's part of the nice thing now is kind of having a group where we're able to look at it. And now we're talking we're talking 2 weeks ahead of time.
Yep.
And testing some workouts that we're able to tweak stuff that maybe wouldn't get tweaked if we just let it sit.
Yeah.
And then it just kind of comes up. So some basic principles, right? We're doing 6 weeks. We're usually testing something at the end of those 6 weeks, right? And it's usually not too many things. So I know there's been times where we've tested too many things,
Yep.
right? In 6 weeks, because you don't want to test all the time. So you will see kind of these 6 weeks go from one to another and have a flow to test certain things. Recently, we did 12 weeks of squatting. First week of the news program, we tested squats.
Yeah.
Right. We're doing a bunch of strict tempo ring dips. We are going to be testing ring dips and we're going to be testing deadlifts as well after this cycle. But part of that, the reason why we're testing things is we want to see whether or not there's improvement. We also want you to know that you're actually improving. Because I think one of the things that happens in any kind of mixed modality programming like CrossFit is that people will vary so much that they almost get random and then you don't test. And so you never know if it's actually working.
Yeah. You have no idea objectively if you're making progress.
Yep. And so then you get, like we were talking about the weight loss stuff, you're just beat up, sweaty, and high heart rate. So it must be doing great.
Right. I must be killing it.
Crushing it, right? So one of the things we want to make sure is that we are testing something. And we usually repeat a workout from the previous cycle to try and get better at that workout as well. So other than that, we are looking at movement patterns. So whether you want to call it knee flexion or squat patterns, bilateral to unilateral, just a way of saying like 2 arms, 1 arm, 2 legs, 1 leg movements. Looking at how much kipping volume we're doing. We will audit the previous kind of 2 to 3 cycles to see what we've been kind of targeting or if we've been biased too much one way and to see what we're missing. Because a well-rounded program, we want to make sure that we're not biasing things too much, right? Because then you get overuse problems. And since we are a group fitness model, not all our members are coming in every day, right? Which is a whole thing that we want to kind of take into account long term during the year. So movement patterns, pressing overhead, horizontally pulling, uh, making sure we're not having so much knee flexion that we're just doing way too much. It's a thing.
Yeah.
It's a thing for sure. Because there are certain movement patterns where we can hit them more. We just can. Like we wouldn't do kipping every day.
No.
It won't happen. We wouldn't do bilateral dynamic squatting 5 times in 1 week. It's probably not gonna go great. So movement patterns we look at, um, excuse me. We also look for general themes in the gym where we see that in general we're kind of weak or we're missing something.
Hmm.
Like one of the things I learned at Roseland, we just did that kind of minute on, minute off. A lot of people are really bad at that power output.
Yeah.
So we have some of that going on, but it was like, ooh, we are really missing this with some of these people. And so we can start targeting different things. The other thing we take into account is, hey, we just had Murph, we had the Open. So we obviously want to have people feel as prepared as possible for that. And the truth is, you're never really prepared for the Open
No.
because you don't know what the workouts are.
Right.
But yeah, so we're looking at all those things. So I know that's a lot of like words and who knows what a lot of it means, but just know that we are looking back at previous weeks, previous cycles to see kind of what we're missing and to make sure we're not overdoing something. And then we're looking forward with it and making a plan towards specific kind of times of the year that we want to test things.
Yeah.
So that way we can build towards moments and create these opportunities for people to kind of prove and test their fitness and also have a good emotional high on like, hey, I'm doing better.
Yeah.
Right. We want to set up people for success as much as possible. So I know that was a lot of rambling. Sorry. But programming is interesting because there is science to it. But the reality is the people on the ground doing the work are disproving or improving the science of it.
Yeah.
Like the joke used to be like, oh, exercise science. There's not much science or exercise going on in it. And they've gotten a lot better with it. I mean, one of the years for the CrossFit Games, they literally programmed the CrossFit Games to go against the most popular exercise science book that was at the time.
That's interesting.
Which is why they ran the trail run 7K and people were PRing their deadlift afterwards.
Yes.
Yeah.
I remember
deadlift
that.
ladder. Yeah.
So yeah, to chunk down what Dave is saying.
Sorry. I
It's
geek
all right.
out on this stuff.
No,
It's a
it's
problem.
fine. So he mentioned balancing movement patterns,
Yeah.
right? You need to make sure we're not squatting 3 days in a row. We're not hanging from a pull-up bar 4 or 5 days in a week,
Mhm.
right? So you need to balance the movement patterns.
Mhm.
That's tough, but it's important to do.
Yep.
The other thing is we do 6-week cycles, right? And so really a 6-week cycle we've talked about, is not really a full cycle. Most of the time when I program for people individually, I look at cycles as 12 weeks,
Mhm.
but we do it in 6 weeks because it's half of 12 weeks. And when executed well, you can string one progression into the next to then
Mhm.
test,
Yeah.
right? So you mentioned we did 12 weeks of squatting, right? We had Quan program a 6-week cycle. Courtney then looked at it, who was next, and was like, great, I'm going to do something very similar, change the rep scheme a little bit, change the percentages to build and then test. And we had a lot of people PR their front squats and back squats,
Mhm.
right? And so the reason why we then rotate on the 6 weeks is because it does not matter how long you've been doing this. It does not matter how good you are at a programmer. You have biases.
Yes.
And so in order to get our clients the best results, we don't want to fall into doing things the same way every single time, because then results will plateau.
Mhm.
And so we rotate the 6 weeks, and we've improved our communication rhythms on the programming to make sure one flows or bleeds into the other.
Mhm.
We've condensed, like you said. So those are 2 principles. The third principle we have when it comes to our programming is we want to test one lift every 6 weeks.
Mhm.
So we have one thing to test. But again, we're not testing everything every 6 weeks.
Yeah.
You mentioned the first week of your programming, you tested the back squat because we just did 12 weeks of squatting, right? Alex is going to be programming after you. And we had the conversation of like, okay, hey, we've done Olympic lifting in some capacity over the last, what'll be 12 weeks
Mhm.
plus. And so it's like, all right, hey, Al, let's have you pick one of the Olympic lifts, do a specific progression that'll build off of Dave's, which is more of a maintenance phase for the Olympic lifts, and test.
Mhm.
And so we do want one lift and we want one conditioning piece, because the cool thing about CrossFit is everything's gamified and has a score. And so it allows you to test a conditioning piece that normally in previous styles of fitness, you wouldn't be able to test.
Mhm.
And so we want to repeat one of those per cycle to see. Plus, it's motivating to be like, all right, I did 8 rounds of this workout. I think I could do a little over 8. And then it's like, I did 8.5 rounds. Like my fitness is improving.
Yeah,
like
better.
you get all of that. So those are some of the principles that Dave kind of summarized. To add a couple more, and I wrote them down so I don't forget, is one of the things we're working on is now varying the days.
Yep.
And so in the past, we would always do, hey, Monday is this, Tuesday is this, Wednesday is this. And it was easy for us to do that as programmers. And when Dave came in, he kind of rejiggered something that we knew, but it was like, frankly, we just didn't have the kick in the butt to do it. Is like, great example was Courtney's last cycle, we squatted on Mondays. Well, if I don't come in every month, if I'm never in on a Monday, I don't squat the whole cycle.
Yep.
And so what we're playing around was whether it's it might not be every cycle, but every couple of cycles, we're going to have it be very rotating.
Yep.
So you get touches, even if you don't run into a situation where I'm a Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday person. And so I never see a barbell. Right.
Yeah, ever. There's certain movements you wouldn't see if that's all you do.
Yeah. So we're going to be rotating that stuff. Another thing we look at is we want the work in class to be about 25 to 32 minutes. There's some exceptions to that. Like if you have a workout that's maybe on a weekend with a bigger group or a holiday workout where the movement selection is really basic, right?
Yep.
If it's burpees, running, and jump rope, not that it would be that, but I'm just making up simple movements. You don't necessarily have to take 20 minutes to break down those movements. So you might make it a longer workout. But we found that 25 to 32 minutes is the sweet spot where it's like, I'm getting a good workout. I'm touching on what I need to, but it allows for enough time for the coach to warm the class up effectively, coach the class, actually coach the class. Cause that's something we've talked about is there's a difference between being a workout administrator and coaching people to move better.
Yeah, which can happen if you throw a whole kitchen sink at someone in one day, right?
And so we found that over time, if you're in that zone, that allows enough time for all of that.
Energy systems.
That was the next thing I was going to say is you want to look to then puzzle piece energy systems. So if you look at a week, if every workout is in the same time domain, we messed up.
Yeah.
And so I know that's a pretty long list. And guys, frankly, that's what makes programming hard. Like, like people who do it, people like me, Dave, Courtney, Alex, like we like programming. We're nerds when it comes to it, but that doesn't mean it's easy. And it's because there's a lot you're trying to puzzle piece to make sure you guys get the best results.
And it can always get better.
Yes.
Like it never arrives.
Yeah.
It's not like, oh, this is the most beautiful thing on the planet that I've ever programmed. It's never perfect. Right.
It's never perfect also because it's like you could have a strength progression you do and PR like by a bazillion pounds. Like, oh my gosh. And you could bring back that same progression, a year later and it falls completely flat because there's things that are going on in your environment, in your body, in your life, like that's always changing. And so that's what makes this both hard but fun is that it's like, if it was like that, where it's like, oh, if I just do this, I know everyone's going to PR 10 pounds. Why would I do anything else?
Yeah, you just repeat it. Yeah.
But you have to because the body accommodates and adapts. And then on top of it, it wants to stay the way it is. And so it's like, if you're not changing things, you don't actually get the results you're looking for. Yeah. So guys, hopefully that was informative so that next time you step into class, I want you guys to know that all of those things is what went into every workout you see on the board.
Yes.
And that doesn't even talk about, I'll mention it briefly. Like you said, we try to get it written 2 weeks ahead of time so that Dave or me and the programmer can meet to go over adjustments. We then have a meeting with all the gyms that are going to be doing that programming. We then film a video that we send out to you guys. And so it's like, we do all of that before you see a single workout on the board. And even then, every once in a while, there's a dud.
Oh yeah, it happens.
Yeah. So guys, hopefully that was insightful. Hopefully you guys have an understanding of what we do every time we go into doing the programming with that. As always, guys, please like and subscribe to us on YouTube and Instagram. Give us a 5-star rating on the podcast platform you listen on. See you at the gym.